It is time for another monthly wrap up. I think this month I didn't read as many books, but I think the quality of them are really good.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
I read about 8 books this month, which is pretty much what I average. Reflecting back to the April TBR, I read all but 2 of them, so that's not too bad, but of course those 2 were Red Rising and Midnight Library. I keep pushing back Red Rising. I don't know what's happening to me, but something about the book intimidates me and I don't want to start it. And Midnight Library I just didn't get around to, but I do want to read eventually.
So I ended up reading 7 books this month, and I as well didn't get to 2. And they were Annie Bot by Sierra Greer and If Only I Had Told Her by Laura Nolan, which I do plan to still read those 2. I don't know what happened, but that's fine. And I think I had a good range of different genres. I of course had like 2, maybe 3 romances, fantasy, a mystery thriller, a historical fiction, YA contemporary. So I think that was a good range this month.
I read a lot of mystery thrillers this month. I did 2 romances, 3 mystery thrillers, a classic, a fantasy, and like a lit fic. So I had a really good reading month though. I liked a lot of the books. We have them all in front of us, so we're just gonna go ahead and get started. The first one I have here is If We Were Villains by ML Rio. I had waited years to read this book, but I'm so glad I finally did because I loved it. In this book, we're following Oliver Marks, who has just been released from jail, and the detective who put him there wants to learn the true story of what happened 10 years ago. It takes place at this theater school. We're following 7 students who study Shakespeare, and we basically just learn the ups and downs of their last year of school, and it was fantastic. This was such an unexpected favorite of mine for this month. I know it had somewhat of a cult following, but I didn't know how I was gonna feel about it. The story was very character driven. I fell in love with all of them. I was so wrapped up in the story. I was not expecting how it was all gonna end. I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I definitely understand the hype. I wish there was more of this to read.
The first one I have is A Love Wager by Lynn Painter. It was such a cute rom-com, and this was actually my first Lynn Painter book that I've ever read. She is an author that I've started wanting to get into, and I'm glad this one was my first one. In this one, we're following 2 people who have this wager to see which one of them can start dating someone off this dating app. The only problem is these 2 people hooked up very early on in the book, and they're trying to act like there's not feelings there, but I still did love the banter between Holly and Jack. Fake dating is one of my most favorite tropes, so I'm so glad it was in this one. I think it was a good story though. I think I would have loved it a lot more if there wasn't that insta-lust and miscommunication, but it was still a really good time. I did end up giving it a 4 star, so definitely recommend if you're looking for a light, fluffy rom-com. And thank you again, Liz, for gifting it to me.
Up next, I have Just Another Missing Person by Jillian McAllister. In this, we're following a detective who is working on a missing persons case, but she ends up being blackmailed into framing the murder on someone else in order to protect her family. So it was very interesting. I love the way that this author writes. There was so many twists and turns throughout the whole book that I wasn't expecting, and I just love watching these mysteries unravel. Her books always have me hooked from start to finish. I do want to read a lot more of this author. I did give this one 4 stars, and I think it's one of my favorite mystery thrillers of this year so far.
Up next, I have Lady Tan Circle of Women by Lisa C, and this was absolutely fantastic. I was gonna give it a 4.75, but I'm tired of doing that, so I just went ahead. I gave it the full 5 stars that it deserves, so it's technically my first 5 star of the year.
Oh my gosh!
We're basically seeing how life was for women in China in the 1500s. It's just like a crazy experience to see everything that these women were going through, and we're following life through Lady Tan's eyes. Lady Tan really wants to be a doctor and treat women, and that's like outside of the traditions. So it was just crazy seeing her from a young age feeling like that's what she's passionate about and what she wants to do, until seeing her all the way until she's an older woman and seeing like everything that came from that. And then when I read the acknowledgments at the end and realized that Lady Tan was actually based off a real life physician in the 1500s China is insane. It just made the story that much more impactful. The writing in the story was absolutely amazing, and I appreciate all of the research that had to go in order to make a book like this. And I will definitely be reading more from Lisa C.
Up next, I have All's Well by Mona Awad. Mona Awad has become one of my new favorite authors. I'm obsessed with everything that she writes. In the story, we're following a woman named Miranda. She used to be an actress until a accident ended her career. Now she has like excruciating chronic back pain. Her marriage has failed. She's become very dependent on painkillers, and she's about to lose her job at this college theater program. A lot is going on, and she's definitely struggling. We're basically just watching what happens in her day-to-day life, things definitely start spiraling out of control. And you guys know with Mona Wad's writing, it's very much fever dream. It reminded me a lot of If We Were Villains because they both take place in a theater-like setting and they're both doing Shakespeare plays. So I definitely saw a parallel there. Completely different in their executions though. This one is very good. I gave it a 4-star. I still like Rouge by Mona Wad better. That's like my top book by hers, but this one was very good too.
Up next I have A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This was my first Danielle L. Jensen book and I did enjoy the writing. I don't know if this story was for me. I don't know if like the whole Viking and Norse kind of story is for me. I've never liked shows like that, so I kind of thought maybe if I read a book like that I would enjoy it more. So in this one we're following Freya and she is a shield maiden. She's trying to unite a nation under a power-hungry king while also trying to fight growing desires for his son. I was very intrigued in the first half. I felt like we were just like thrown into the story and we were going and I was into it. And then I think by the second half things kind of started getting a little bit repetitive and slowing down for me. I did like the romance between Freya and Jorn. I just wish we got to know him a little bit more. It kind of just felt like, oh, this is a hot guy, I want him. And like we don't really know much about him. And I'm sure in the second book we're gonna get a lot more about him, but I don't know if I want to read it all. I don't know if I want to continue on with this series. I ended up giving this one a 3.75, but since I did enjoy the writing overall, I would be interested in reading something else from this author.
Up next I have one of the books I read in this month's reading vlog, and it is Suicide Notes from Beautiful Girls by Lynn Wingarden. I absolutely love this one. You guys know we love YA mystery thrillers, and this one was incredible. In the story we're following a girl named June. She's in high school and her ex-best friend has just passed away. They ruled it a suicide, but June thinks that there's more to the story, so she's determined to figure out what actually happened. This was so twisty. I was not expecting the ending whatsoever. It was such an entertaining story all the way through. I am going to read more of this author soon because I was just so blown away by this. I can't believe I've been putting it off for so many years. I loved the writing. I loved the plot. I gave it 4 stars. I definitely recommend if you like YA mysteries, and let me know in the comments if you end up reading it and your thoughts.
The next one is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This is one that I also put in my favorites so far of 2024. This was so good and I'm so late. Y'all already know how good it is. On this one there's this lady named Lenora Hope and everyone thinks that she killed her whole family, and it's years later now and Lenora can no longer speak and the only way that she can communicate is through a typewriter, and she has this caregiver now who's trying to get answers and we're just seeing everything come to light. This is definitely my new favorite Riley Sager book. This one was just crazy with a plot twist in the end. I loved that it had me hooked throughout the entire story. I think with a lot of mystery thrillers, it's kind of flat the whole way through and then it gets crazy at the end, but this one I was seriously locked in the whole time. I ended up giving it a 4.5, so basically a 5-star for me.
Up next, I have The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I don't know what I was expecting going into this, but I should have known because this is the same person who wrote Coraline that this was gonna be spooky-ooky. I was not expecting that. The summary says it's about a man who returns home for a funeral and then he reflects back on events that happened 40 years in the past. The story had a lot of action and adventure. It was definitely spooky. It had an unsettling feeling to it, but I think that's what makes it so good. It felt a little kooky as I was reading it, but I really loved it. It had a childlike wonder to it and it was an interesting story. I think I'm gonna give it though like a 3.5 because it's such a short book. Like I think if there was more time to explore the story as a whole, I would have liked it a lot more, but it was good. I know that there's a movie adaptation, so I'm interested in seeing it. Let me know if you have read this one. I feel like it's one of the Neil Gaiman books that I don't hear much about, so I don't know if it's not as popular as the other ones, but it was still really good.
Up next I have You Reach Sam by Destin Thau. Such a sad book. And I'm so late on this. This was one that was like taking off at the beginning of our reading journey. So I just felt like I needed to read it already and I'm glad that I did. But man, it was just such a sad story and we all knew it was going to be. In this story, we're following Julie, who is a high school girl and she is dealing with the recent death of her boyfriend, Sam. The timeline was jumping from past and present. So we got to see a lot of moments with Julie and Sam together. So that definitely made the experience even more sad. I did feel so bad for Julie throughout the entire story, but I do think she had a lot of character growth from the beginning to the end. I did give this one a 3.5 stars though.
The classic I read for this month was The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'm starting to think I never actually read this in high school because this is nothing like I was expecting. I did enjoy the story, however, I know for a fact pretty much all of the symbolism went over my head. I had an easy time reading it on a surface level, but I know a lot more was happening behind the scenes that I just wasn't picking up on, and that's why it was like one of are assigned readings in high school, I remember having to like write papers on what the green light represented, all these little metaphors and things that I didn't really bother with this time around. I just kind of read it for what it was. I'm definitely gonna have to reread it in the future. But I think that's any classic that I read. It's gonna take me a couple times. I still thought it was a really great book. I want to watch the movie adaptation now again to see how much is actually even similar. I'm gonna have to reread it soon.
The next one I have is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was actually her debut novel, so I'm so happy I finally read it. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I think this one is probably my least favorite of all of the ones that I've read. But I think it's because I'm just over this storyline. I can't do it anymore. This is another one where the boyfriend dies and we're just seeing how the girlfriend and his mom are kind of handling this. I don't think I want to read another book with this plot line though. I think because I read 2 this month, I'm just like, it's too much. It's emotionally draining. It was still enjoyable. It's just sad. So I did give it a 3.75.
Up next, I have Club 22, book 3 in the Hades series by Tate James. I'm working my way through this series. It is a darker romance, reverse harem. It takes place in this town where there are a bunch of different rival gangs, and we're following the leader of a gang, and we're watching as someone's trying to undermine her and ruin everything that she's built. It's so good. I think once you fall in love with the characters, you get wrapped up into the story, and that's definitely what happens with me. As always, it ended on a cliffhanger. Tate James loves a cliffhanger, so I'm definitely going to read book 4 soon, but I really enjoyed this one. I believe I gave it a 4-star, and I do recommend this series as a whole, but I would read the Madison Kate series first because this is basically the spin-off to that series.
And the last one we have for today is our Literal Besties Book Club book for April, and it was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Your first Abby Jimenez book.
And I loved it.
I'm so glad the majority of you enjoyed it. It seems like this is one of the highest rated book club books that we've had so far. Out of like 50 plus reviews, it got a 4.8 on the Fable app. So that's amazing. And this one, we're following Emma and Justin, and they think they have this curse on them where anytime they date somebody, they end up breaking up with them, and then that person ends up finding the love of their life. So Emma and Justin try and date each other to see if they can kind of cancel this curse out. There's a lot of great chemistry between these two characters. I loved the family drama. I loved everything. I gave it a 4.75. It is a 5-star read for me, basically.
It was honestly just a really fun one to read with everyone. Definitely one of my favorite book club books that we've had thus far. It's just a really wholesome story with likable characters, a realistic romance. I definitely want to read more by Abby Jimenez. I think this was a perfect one for this time of year because like we're getting close to summer. I gave it a 4-star, and this was the first like just contemporary romance that I've read in a while, so I'm glad I really enjoyed it.
I'm so happy we enjoyed our April book club. You guys have already picked our May book, and it's going to be the reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. You guys know how much we love Holly Jackson, so I'm hoping this is back-to-back amazing reads for the book club. If you haven't joined already and you want to, we will leave that link in the description, so come read with us.
That is pretty much it for our April wrap-up. Stay tuned for our May TBR. We're doing something fun and different for this month. That one will be out soon, but I think it was a good overall reading month for us.
Definitely some new favorites in this stock for sure.
Let us know in the comments what books you read for April. Also, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you guys next time.
What is that?
Just trying to show my Billy shirt.
Cute.
Wait, so when we did favorites, I thought you had 5 stars already.
They were all 4.75.
Okay, I got
pretty
you.
much.
Basically, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so they are my 5 stars. I'm just annoying.
Same.
Up next, I have A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jansen.
Jansen's.
So in this one, a shield maiden battles to unite a nation
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Isn't it crazy that we like add our whole thing? I get it, Billy.
I get it. Please.